Hey y'all, it's Chimdi. So I am here in Mexico. The traffic was so bad towards the airport that I ended up fully missing my flight. So I'm back here still in Playa del Carmen. I was trying to figure out what my next video would be, and I realized I had the perfect topic: how to know whether your healing journey is working. Because often when we start healing, it seems like things get worse before they get good, which can be very disappointing, and it can be very discouraging, and it makes you want to quit and go back to the life you used to have, where you were living in trauma and spreading that trauma to other people. But of course, now you've gone a little bit too far. Like, you know a little bit more than you did before, so you can actually go back. So you're in this really annoying in-between place. So I want to talk as someone who is a year plus, I'd say, into my healing journey, and I think I've started to really experience a lot of the benefits that come with healing. I want to share 3 major ways to know that your healing journey is on the right track. And the headings we're going to use is 1, things get better; 2, things get worse; 3, things stay the same. Before we get into it, I want to give a thank you to my Patreon people. Y'all support means so much to me, and as I go on this journey that includes some financial insecurity at times, getting that check from Patreon, it just makes my heart sing a little bit. So thank you all so much. So let's start by talking about things getting better, because I promise it's worth it. So in terms of things getting better in my own life, I'd say the biggest one has been how I feel in my own body. 1, just having a connection to it in the first place. Often when things happen to us, we leave our body energetically, we disassociate because it's not safe and it's not the wise choice to remain in our body, which means little stuff like, this is something I had a former partner call out. Like, I don't know if I was like scratching my head or doing something, and he was like, "You're so rough with your own body." And because I wasn't really connected to myself, I didn't really feel when I was being harsh with myself. So one of the major things I've done in my healing journey is start to caress myself, start to give myself little kisses, give myself many words of affirmation, and really just feel that relationship to myself that in the past wasn't there. And as a result of feeling and being connected to my own body, all of the sensations of my body, including the sexy ones, they're way better. And I'm also more attuned to my intuition. So often we'll have these feelings in our stomach, feelings in our body come up when we're thinking about making certain choices, going to certain places, talking to certain people. And these feelings are subtle clues about how we really feel about these things, and like whether or not it's really the best choice for us. And often when we're younger, we learn to ignore those feelings because it didn't sort of serve us at that time. But then as an adult, you'll find yourself sort of ignoring these intuitive leads, and that leads you in situations and in circumstances that just really suck. And so now that I am more connected to my body, I can hear myself when I say certain things like, "Yeah girl, don't make that choice, don't talk to that person, don't engage in this experience, it's not going to be for you." A recent example I had was with this company that I used to do work for. I decided to stop working with them because they weren't paying me, and then they reached out again saying, "Hey, can we work together?" And I was open to listening, but I said before I even hopped on the call, I was like, unless they're going to pay you money, Chimdi, don't agree to it. So I had that intention going in. I get a whole pitch, I get excited, it seems really cool, but as I'm listening, I see that at no point is there any sort of mention of pay. And I'm just like, but I agree to it anyway because I'm very caught up, and I'm also caught up in the other person's opinions and making them happy, that people-pleasing thing. When the call ends, from that moment on, I have this pit in my stomach, and that pit is saying, girl, this is not the move. This is not the move. It took me all day, but by the end of the day, I was like, yeah, this feeling, it will only grow every single day until I have to like do this thing I agreed to. Let me just cut it out now. And so I messaged the person, I got out of it, and immediately afterwards, ooh, the relief, the sweet relief. And that becomes its own gift. I'm reading this great book called Anxious to Please, and it's about people pleasing and being a nice person, and the way we can kind of combat this impulse and this compulsion to show up in ways that don't really honor ourselves. And the book starts by saying that if you're used to being scared your whole life, it may seem impossible that you can live a life where you're moving confidently and powerfully in your own life and in your choices, but that is possible. And I literally read that and I just started weeping, because to really have it named to have a constant fear, a constant anxiety for your entire life, so much so that you don't even realize it's something you're carrying around with you. And the idea that this weight can be lifted and you can live free from that heavy sort of constant concern and worry and fear, I just seemed like a miracle, honestly. And I've noticed just being here in Mexico, the way that's shifted for me. So I feel like I talk a lot about how much weeping I do, but I don't include a lot of weeping in my YouTube videos. And part of it is because I don't want to be turned into a meme, because I think if you weep really hard, there's a good chance you might get turned into a meme, and that'd be a bummer. Speaking of which, I watched a video about the backstory of that meme where it's like that white woman yelling at a cat and the cat's just like looking and the woman's like really intense. The backstory is deeply upsetting, right? So that's part of it. And then a part of it too is like not wanting to like exploit emotional moments that are like personal and intimate for like YouTube success. There's this feeling that like that somehow cheapens my internal processing and healing journey if I show these parts of it. And I was just really feeling into how nice it is to be seen. And by letting more parts of me be seen, I'll also get to see myself more in others. That's a insight I had recently. So this is my way of saying I may start sprinkling more clips of me weeping into my videos. Let me know if you want that. Let me know in the comments if that would resonate with you. Little things, like I remember I was getting some guac. When I thought of Mexico, I was like, guacamole. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go get some guac. I'm gonna hang out at this like seaside restaurant. It's gonna be great. And I leave my condo and I go. The entire time, all I'm thinking about is like, hurry up and eat this food so you can go back inside and be safe. I was in this tropical location in a tourist town, no danger really, but I had this feeling of fear that wasn't actually tied to my actual life and surroundings because it was living inside of me and inside of my body. Fast forward to now, it's been maybe like a month and a half, and the difference in when I'm just like sitting somewhere and feeling like, oh, like it's all gonna be okay, it's all comfortable. Another way things get better is the amount of capacity you have to handle really tough situations. Things that would have freaked me out before, I'm now just like, oh, okay, let me just roll with the punches. An example is the reason that I'm still here in Playa. I'm not used to traveling with checked luggage. I'm used to just doing the carry-on, and I forgot that you need to be at the airport an hour before your flight if you want to check a bag. So already I didn't really factor that into my calculations, and then actually getting from Playa to the airport, the traffic was terrible. So I ended up taking like I think twice as long as it would have normally, which meant that while I was getting in line to check my bag, the doors were closing on my flight. And it was interesting because on the ride there, as I could see that the traffic was like continuing to be bad and continuing to be bad, part of me wanted to rehearse the feeling of stress and anxiety and like, oh no, this bad thing is going to happen. Let's just start now being worried and concerned. So we're already in that energy. And I was like, what difference does that make? Like, I'm still sitting here on a bus. Like, why not just enjoy my music, enjoy this book, and then deal with life as it happens versus trying to control it and get ahead of it by being in especially a negative emotion. And so I stayed in a good mood, and by the time I got to the ticket counter, they were like, oh no, and they were like all in a state, and I was just like, well, we can't change anything, so let's just be proactive. I decided to essentially extend my stay and change my flight and got myself on a bus right back to Playa. And also, it doesn't hurt that staying in Playa means just like having more days on the beach. So there are worse outcomes for sure. But I know for me, when I think about travel and the logistics of flying especially, there is this sort of low grade anxiety of like hoping everything goes right, hoping there aren't any hiccups like the whole time. And so to instead be like, no matter what happens, it's all gonna be fine. It's just such a different way of moving through life. And it just makes life a lot more enjoyable and allows me to just kind of like stay in a good energy and not let external circumstances knock me around. I think that's like the biggest thing before you heal, is that so much of your happiness depends on things that are not in your control, that are happening outside of you. So what people say, what they think, what circumstances happen at your work, with your family, with your partner, all these other things. If they're going great, you're happy. If they're not going great, you're miserable. And you don't have any actual control over how you feel. It's all based on what's happening doing in the world. And so healing brings all that energy back inside your body, and now you control your mood and you control your energy. And to be clear, like, it's a journey, so it's not like no matter what situation I'm always like happy and thrilled. An example is actually something I talked about a few videos ago, my $6,000 mistake. So I'm on a monthly payment plan for a coaching program for a whole year that I'm not participating in because it's not aligned for me. So every time I get that like email notification that's like, here's another $500+ taken out of your account, is just like, ugh. And I actually recently prayed to God around like, I need some support around this because it's really bothering me. So yeah, those are the ways things do get better, but it truly is a journey. I'm just coming in real quick to remind you all to subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. And I want to give some extra love to my Patreon people who have really come through and supported me, and I just like love and appreciate y'all. I'm actually gonna go edit this very video that we're talking about. All right, goodbye. And I want to talk about the way things get worse. So I think for a while, we spent a lot of our energy and time ignoring and suppressing and like powering through and not really giving space and energy to the things that are really bothering us. And we get so used to ignoring these things that they're kind of, like I said, always kind of humming in the background, but they're not present. And when you heal, I think healing literally just consists of expanding your awareness. So more of you is here, and that means more of your feelings, more of your pain, more of your challenges, more of your excitement. And that means that you go from a sort of dull, I think, kind of flat life that's kind of just like, to one that's like much more expansive in both directions. I think when we have more capacity, that's when more stuff can come up. In my opinion, it's not really like new stuff. It's feelings that have been in our heart, in our spirit for a while, sensations in our body, pain in our body that's been here the whole time, and we just haven't been listening to it because we didn't have the room to. And so when we heal some of those like first top level, top layer, low hanging fruit things, it feels great because we're like, ooh, all this new energy, like, yes, you know? But then that means that the stuff that's right below, the fruit that's been ripening, that's the stuff that now comes up. And often that's the stuff that's way bigger, that's been around for a lot longer, that's a lot deeper, that's a lot tougher, that involves more intimate relationships. Now that stuff is coming up. And it's at that point when you really start being like, this is really, really hard. No one told me that it was gonna be this. I knew it was gonna be tough, but it's one thing to intellectually know, oh, this is gonna be hard to deal with. And it's another thing when you're like weeping and crying and shaking and overwhelmed and like clutching yourself in like trauma and suffering and pain because of some stuff that happened 20 years ago, right? Sometimes, yeah, we wanna quit when that happens, but actually it is a sign of your healing and growth that this stuff is coming up, because it only comes up if you have the capacity for it. For me, a lot of it has been stuff around relationships, intimate partner relationships, intimacy itself, the vulnerability that comes with wanting to be in a safe, healthy relationship and really be seen, and the challenge when you feel like you're not being heard and seen, when you aren't asking for what you need, when you feel like you're being judged. Like, all these different things have been so intense for me because of the container I had when I was younger. And so to like face these things as an adult and to have that feeling of, I am an adult, so these things shouldn't be happening, I think that's like really common. You're like, oh, well, I'm this age, I shouldn't be dealing with these things, as if like living isn't a lifelong process, and no one ever perfects living. Like, every moment you are always getting better and better at it. So that's really when that extra grace is called for, and I do think just knowing that that's a part of the process goes a long way. So if you start a healing journey and you're starting to get to that point where things are getting intense, that is a part of it. Like, we all go through it. It's very necessary. And I also want to talk about the way things stay the same. I had an original framework, I don't know if I've lost at this point, but I wanted to say how like things get better, but it doesn't affect you in the same way because like you have more of your inner like rooting and happiness and faith inside of you. Things get worse, but it isn't as bad because you do now have more capacity. So the things that used to just like knock you on your behind before, you're now able to really handle. And then things stay the same, but because you have more grace, more appreciation, more presence, they feel more beautiful. But I want to talk about a really cool opportunity that I'm getting to do. I'm actually gonna fly directly from Playa to New York to do this project. I'm getting paid a ton of money talk to y'all about that later. And it's awesome because it's not something that I like did a bunch of hustling for, and I'm so excited for it. And I think it would have been different if I had gotten the opportunity a year ago or 2 years ago, because I think I put a lot more of my focus on the external, and I was really counting on things outside of myself to make me happy. Getting this cool opportunity, I'm like, this is so dope, I'm so excited, and I was happy before I got it. Like, it wasn't like I was miserable and this cool thing came and I'm like, yay, I'm so happy. It's like, no, like, life is good, God is good. I'm in Playa del Carmen. I like start my mornings listening to my favorite songs and dancing, and I'm in this good energy. So getting awesome things, it matches the energy I already have. And I talked a little bit about the law of attraction stuff in a few different videos, and the gist to me is that things always just match where you're at. So if you want this stuff that you think is going to make you happy, be in the energy of happy and then you'll get more things that make you happy. If you're looking at your life and you're like, oh, these things, they're not really aligned to me, then it's a clue as to what in your spirit maybe you want to work on or look at or bring some loving, compassionate awareness to. And I also just want to emphasize the way things stay the same and there's really no difference, but you just appreciate it more. Like, a big one for me is blankets. I've got a blanket right here on this condo bed, and when I walked in, this is my third condo now after being in Playa for like a month and a half. I think this is actually the worst condo of all three. It's like below ground level, so I get very little natural light. There's no view. I'm just staring at like a wall basically, and it's the closest to the kind of strip area, so it's like super loud, like car alarms are going off and stuff. And if I had gotten this condo at the beginning of my trip where I was still super activated from all of the like healing I'd been doing, it would have been overwhelming. But I'm the same person and I'm now in this place that's arguably worse, but I actually am even more grateful and I can handle it more. And I love me a blanket. So when I'm wrapped up in a blanket, I feel very safe and loved and warm. And so to come in and just see a blanket on the bed, which is like a normal thing, I was like, a blanket, yes! Like, I was genuinely and remain genuinely very excited about this blanket. And so the ability for these things that truly aren't a big deal to fill you with this joy and fill you with this happiness, because your like connection to happiness and your connection to joy is so much stronger, is a really beautiful benefit. So I just wanted to share that if you're on a healing journey, keep healing. It's worth it, even if it's really hard. I was gonna make one of the points being that you get all these cool new opportunities and experiences, but I have to say, like, I've been getting cool experiences my whole life. Like, I don't think that's actually tied to my healing, but I will say that the appreciation is very different and there's a level of normalcy. I now expect good things to happen. I've been able to really clear that feeling of I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm just waiting for something bad to happen after. I can't expect nice things. Nice things are always followed by bad things. And being able to clear that and just know that I can appreciate life as it's happening, whether it's good or bad is a judgment I'm making. All that's really true is that I can handle whatever comes because I can be present in my body. And if I can't handle it, that means that I will disassociate and leave my body, and that will be wise and intelligent. So there's no need to judge. There's no need to sort of beat myself up. All I really need to do is just stay connected to myself, do my best, be impeccable with my word on some 4 agreements, take nothing personally, not assume, listen to my heart virtues, and it is truly like moment after moment after moment, you're never really done. For a while with my healing journey, I've really resisted the fact that you're never done. I'm always like, but it would be kind of nice to be done though. Like, it'd be nice to kind of chill. But after having about a month of literally like chilling on a beach and it being beautiful, and I love it by the way, I see that life is the waves. It's the ups, it's the downs. The beach is only as great as it is because I know what it's like to live in a city. I know what it's like to live in the desert. I know what it's like to live in the cold. Like, so I can appreciate every season of life and not thinking that it should only be one way. Because what I found is that when we have an expectation and things don't match up how we think they should be, that's when we can create a lot of suffering for ourselves. Let me know in the comments, are you on a healing journey? What have you healed? Do you have support, or are you trying to heal alone? And are there any resources? I continue to get like books, videos, like all types of resources, and they help me out so much in my journey. The most recent one is Osho. The lovely Reba recommended Osho in one of her videos. Though I told a friend of mine about Osho, and then she was like, yeah, that cult he founded seemed kind of wild. And I was like, he founded a cult? So apparently that man did found a cult. Not a fan of that. But I'm glad I know about that, because I know sometimes I have the tendency to look at spiritual teachers outside of myself and think like, oh, let me just learn whatever they have to teach me and just assume that they are experts and masters, and I should just like blindly just take their ideas as my own. And so hearing this man started a whole ass cult was a good reminder that everything we consume on every platform, even if the person seems incredible, always question and look for yourself to see if it makes sense for your own life. And if it doesn't, discard it.